Welcome back. Your time is now 7:14. You're taking a look at Route 5 at Ridge Road. It looks calm and quiet right now, but yeah, don't be fooled by that, because within the next 5 hours or so, things are really going to get a little bit crazier out there. And Kaylee, delays are already being caused at the airport because of it.
Right. We've seen a few delays and even a few cancellations already this morning, sort of in preparation and in response to the forecast that we've been delivering. That's good news. And if I was a betting woman, I'd say that by later on this morning, we'll probably see a lot more of those delays and cancellations. And that's because, of course, these wind speeds going to be pretty brutal by about 11, 12 o'clock this afternoon. We're expecting sustained winds between about 35 and 45 miles per hour, with gusts climbing towards that 75-mile-per-hour mark. And those will be the worst towards noon and all the way extending through about dinner time before they back up slightly into this evening. Now, because of those strong winds, ice on Lake Erie will be moving around pretty good today, and we've got pretty decent swells expected. We're talking between 19 and 24 feet out on Lake Erie. That's really impressive. And so you can expect some of that ice to cause a little bit of lakeshore flooding along the shoreline. So on top of the winds, this is something we're closely watching. And in addition to all of that, a bit later on, sort of in the second half of this event, we are expecting to see rain switch over to snow. We're looking at nearly 1 to 3 inches for Buffalo and 3 to 6 inches south of the city, which will blow around and reduce visibility by later on tonight. So this really is a storm that you'll want to stay inside if you can. Now, at this point, wind speeds are between 15 and 30 miles per hour sustained. We've got gusts at Dunkirk and in Erie, PA starting to ramp up. So again, right along the lakeshore, already in the 40s. Further inland, we're still looking at the teens, 20s, and 30s. Those are manageable. But by later on, like I said, those wind gusts are really going to ramp up and potentially cause some damage. Another thing the winds are going to do, they're going to switch direction and filter in colder air through our region. So although it feels not too bad out there this morning, we're talking low 40s and upper 30s, we are going to be seeing that temp plummet once the front rolls through, and we're talking back into the 20s by later on tonight. And that, of course, will switch any of this drizzle and rain over to some snow showers again later on. So here's a look outside this morning. We've got very, very minimal, just drizzle happening really around western New York, but behind it, or in front of it, depending on how you look at it, we're tracking that front that's causing all of the changes. And here's a good idea of what you can expect. See all of those dots? That's really a mess across the center of our country. And these alerts, they're called storm reports, range from heavy snow to icing to very strong winds to heavy rain and some flood concerns. So we're expecting it all here in western New York as that same system pushes into our region. So again, a look at the timing for you on the hour-by-hour models. We're talking about drizzle through that 10, 11 o'clock hour, and it's not until noontime that that front really causes some heavier downpours and then the changeover back to some snow showers. Now, as we see snow developing a little bit greater into this evening, be ready for visibility changes. We're talking near zero for some of you because of that blowing and drifting for the snow. Snowfall amounts manageable. We talked about it, just a couple of inches, but again, with those winds blowing it around, it's not going to be great for travel. That snow will continue into early Monday morning before starting to taper as we get into the afternoon. So here's a recap for you on the 7-day. We're at our warmest point right now, but falling all day long, back into the 20s tonight, 20s to start out your work week, and then a little bit of a recovery towards the end of next week.
Thanks, Kaylee. Well, today it's all about the weather and these strong wind gusts that are heading our way. So we're going to head right outside and take a live look over what looks like a calm downtown Buffalo right now. But in just a few short hours, Kaylee, that's all going to change. You're expecting that this will hit around noon.
Right, we're seeing the beginning of this system right now, but to start out, the winds are not the biggest piece of it. We've got just a little bit of drizzle across western New York and a lot of cloud cover. As we get into the later portions of this morning, towards 10 o'clock, that's when the rain will start to increase. front will move through, and behind it, the strongest of the winds. Now again, here's an updated look at the satellite and radar, which shows you that front that's expected to move through the area still west of our region, but that is going to be pushing through our area as we get into the later portions of this morning. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of impacts from these strong winds other than the obvious, and I want to mention that out over Lake Erie, we're about 85 to 90% covered with ice, and those strong winds will push all of that ice into these lakeshore communities. So we've got high wind warnings in place, we've got lakeshore flood warnings in place, and of course, this rain expected to switch over to snow once it cools down, so visibility will be reduced. Now at this point, wind speeds are sustained between about 15 and 30 miles per hour, and we're seeing these slowly increase this morning already. Gust potential in Dunkirk, check that out. Already, we've reached about 47 miles per hour. Elsewhere, a little bit further inland, we're still sitting in the 20s. But we have the potential, like Angela mentioned, to see record wind gusts. And here's a look at some of those records for you. Now, coming up in my full 4 and forecast, we're going to continue to break down this storm for you so you know exactly what to expect heading into this afternoon.
Thanks, Kaylee. And as we prepare for today's extreme weather, city, county, and state officials are sharing important warnings with the community. We're joined now by Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown on the phone with more warnings from the city of Buffalo. Good morning, Mayor Brown. Can you hear me?
Good morning. I sure can.
Good morning. Could you, thank you so much for joining us. Could you start by telling us about the series of closures that you announced?
Yes, at 10 a.m. we're closing LaSalle Park, Erie Basin Marina, Broderick Park, and Bird Island Pier.
Now, many of us don't have to travel to work or school today, but for people who have to be outside for whatever reason, what advice can you pass along?
Certainly recommending that they dress warm, dress in layers. We'll have a number of workers. There'll be a number of people that have to go to work today. Garbage and recycling pickup will be as scheduled on Monday. We're asking residents to hold off on bringing garbage and recycling totes to the curb until Monday. We're asking that they place garbage in plastic bags inside the garbage tote and recycling in clear plastic bags inside the recycling tote. Garbage pickup on Monday will start at 7 a.m. So if they put their garbage out on Monday, it needs to be put out Monday morning prior to 7 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the city, state, and county are working together on storm preparations, mid-storm safety, and storm recovery?
Been a number of calls between state, city, and county officials. We continue to work very closely with Governor Cuomo. The SKYWAY is closing to tractor trailers at 10 a.m. today, noon to all vehicles. The state has hundreds of pieces of equipment on standby for the city and county should it be needed. Already, the city has in its possession from the state generators, chainsaws, chippers to reduce any fallen wood debris. We will have city DPW crews that will work with contractors to clear fallen trees or debris from roadways if needed. We will have traffic signal crews and Buffalo police prepared to address any traffic signal outages or any traffic signal issues. And we are working very closely with National Grid for any power lines down or power outages. Residents can call National Grid at 1-800-465-1212.
Mayor Byron Brown, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to post this interview on WIVB.com. Just head to our website to listen to it there.
Officials say the Lake Erie Niagara River ice boom broke today. That caused sections of it to float down the river while ice was building up along the shore. You can see that in this video here. The county says The New York Power Authority says the ice boom is functioning as designed and that any flooding is not due to the ice boom breaking. This has been a rough day for people trying to travel. Dozens of flights in and out of the Buffalo-Niagara International Airport have been canceled or delayed. If you have a flight scheduled for tonight or tomorrow, you're going to want to call the airport or your airline. Entered forestry calls and National Grid explaining that they might not even have restoration estimated times until the winds subside and they can assess damage. The rest of that press conference is streaming on WIVB.com. Well, these strong wind gusts continue to make travel dangerous this evening. The Skyway is closed until further notice. Our photographer was on scene as crews brought down the gate on the Skyway at noon today. But that's not the only place that's still affected. Bird Island Pier, the Erie Basin Marina, and LaSalle Park are all closed. There's also a ban on empty tractor trailers on the thruway. Thank you, Andrew. And this is an example of how dangerous it can be on the roads. A viewer sent us this picture of a semi that rolled over near the Walden Galleria. There is a ban on empty tractor trailers on the thruway. We do not know right now if there was anything in this truck. On Grand Island, there are only a few places with power tonight. Strong winds and now snow have made it tough on residents there. That's where we find News 4's Shannon Smith. She spoke with some that are left picking up the pieces from this storm around the area. Shannon?
That's right, Erica. We're here off of Grand Island Boulevard, just in the parking lot of a gas station where the winds have not let up at all tonight. This is actually one of the harder hit areas, or the area that saw kind of the higher wind gust today. And yeah, Grand Island, it's been windy. Snow is kind of starting to fall. Excuse me, I'm going to try to get through this so you can hear me and try not to blow away here. But some places have power here in on Grand Island. Some places don't. Some parts are still without power. Excuse me. We've been across western New York today and received several pictures and videos of wind damage. Crews have been dealing with down power lines and trees all day, like a tree that fell on a home on Woodbridge in Buffalo earlier today. The homeowner said she was inside at the time and said she heard a loud crash. Now, that tree knocked down her chimney and it fell on her roof. Tree removal services says they've been slammed with calls similar to this all day.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we got trees on houses, cars, garages, power wires, you know, and obviously we're going to be working throughout the night.
Now, another concern for some areas like Grand Island is flooding. As Andrew mentioned earlier, there is a flash flood warning due to that ice jam flooding along the Niagara River. And we did speak to the Grand Island Fire Company tonight, and they say that there are so far no reports of flooding here on Grand Island, but they do have their crews on standby tonight. For now, live on Grand Island, Shannon Smith, News 4. Erica.
Services has called for a voluntary evacuation for those who live on Hoover Beach. The Woodlawn Fire Department went door to door to account for all residents as wind pushed Lake Erie ice ever closer to homes.
The ice that's behind us rose so rapidly in 15 minutes that it's only going to get worse. So we felt it would be proactive to try and alert residents to say, hey, you know what, we should think about alternative accommodations.
Officials are asking the general public to stay out of Hoover Beach. This is a developing story, and we will continue to bring you updates on air and online at WIVB.com. Well, it's been a scary day for some homeowners. We've had several reports of downed trees, some of them into houses. News 4's Kelsey Anderson talked with one woman who was inside her home and a tree came crashing onto her roof. And Kelsey, a part of that ended up in her home?
Yeah, it sure did. It ended up in her living room, actually. A pretty scary situation there. The calls for these downed trees started coming in around noon, 1 o'clock. We drove out to Newstead, where next door neighbors were dealing with some major damage.
It sounded like a bomb.
This afternoon, Lucy T. was in her kitchen when a tree came crashing down onto her home. Here's a picture of her living room ceiling right after it fell. You can see the tree went right through the roof of the home.
I'm still shaky, but I'm okay.
T says if it weren't for some quick-acting neighbors, she may not have been able to stay in her home tonight. Just minutes after the tree came down, her neighbors were over with chainsaws to dismantle the tree. Once they got most of it off the roof, they put a temporary patch on the roof. All still in the middle of this windstorm.
I have wonderful neighbors, Dale and his son Gary, and another neighbor, Ron, and they were here within minutes.
Just next door to Lucy T's home, another tree came down in this front yard. The homeowner here tells me it took power lines down with it. National Grid responded to take care of those. And about 5 minutes away from here in Clarence, on Royal Oak Drive, this tree split in half just after the high winds picked up. Although you can't see it in this video, a man inside this home says the tree went straight through the roof into the garage below.
Now, there have been no deaths as a result of this storm, but the city of Buffalo has reported 2 injuries that happened today. According to Buffalo's fire commissioner, 2 people were injured by falling light poles. We had a photographer on scene after one of those poles came down at Niagara and Garfield Streets. Commissioner William Ronaldo says those injuries weren't severe, but there's more than just light poles coming down.
There's a lot of flying debris out there, a lot of branches coming down, trees coming down, light standards, signs, just about everything you can think of, yeah. So stay at home, and that's the best advice we can give to the public right now.
As of earlier this evening, the city responded to 100 forestry calls for trees, 19 traffic signal calls, and 22 calls for street lights down.
59 here in Buffalo, Batavia, down towards Dunkirk. These were far-reaching wind gusts. And moving forward, these strongest peak wind gusts, the window is starting to close for the 70 to 75 mile an hour wind gust potential. So throughout the rest of tonight, we will start to see these wind gusts very, very gradually and steadily decrease. But it's not going to be enough of an improvement that road crews, or I should say energy crews, can get out safely and start to restore power or start the cleanup process. That's not going to be tonight. Really, tomorrow afternoon is when these winds will really finally start to diminish. But we still got gusts 50 to 60 miles an hour across a lot of the northern counties. The latest numbers, Buffalo at 38, 31 up at Niagara Falls. Don't let that fool you. That's just the last report. And from what I'm hearing in our studio in North Buffalo, we are still certainly getting 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts pretty persistently. And that will continue throughout the rest of tonight. Tomorrow morning, 40 to 50, maybe 55 mile an hour wind gusts. Still very tough out there early on, but by the afternoon we'll start to see those gusts finally go down. But these high wind warnings continue for all of western New York through 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So again, even though the potential of 70, 75 mile an hour wind gusts is now going down, 60 mile an hour plus wind gusts throughout the rest of tonight, that is still enough to cause additional damage. Taking a look at our Lake Erie camera at where the ice boom should be, I believe it actually might be broken because it looks like we're getting some ice free flowing now into the Niagara River. You take a look at our Niagara River camera. Well, it's shaking pretty good right now, and as we're losing the daylight, but I have been observing some of the ice flowing into the Niagara River, and now we've got a flash flood warning because of some ice buildup and ice jamming along the Niagara River around Grand Island near Tonawanda, pretty much from Grand Island up towards Niagara Falls. Be on the watch out for some quick rising waters, some flooding there because of additional ice jams and additional ice buildup tonight. In the meantime, lakeshore flood warnings for the Lake Erie shoreline, as we've seen those levels rising quickly, and we've already seen in a lot of areas what the ice buildup looks like, and some evacuations and voluntary evacuations down around Hamburg. It's really just been a mess. Now, on top of all of this, what I don't want to get lost is we've got some snow moving in right now. Just some lighter snow up across the Niagara Peninsula, some heavier bursts of snow down across the southern hills at the moment. Temperatures have been falling. We're back around or below freezing in most spots, and with all the residual water left on the roads combined with the snow that's falling, watch out for some ice on the roads tonight. Some quick freezing, especially on bridges and overpasses out there. We already don't recommend that you be out on the roads. If you have to head out, just be extra careful, not only with the winds, but we could be finding some very icy spots and slippery spots on the roads. Winter weather advisories are active now. Erie, Genesee, Wyoming, Chautauqua, and Cattaraugus counties. These go through tomorrow. Hour-by-hour forecast. Again, most of the snow around the metro and points south. That's where most of the accumulating snow will be found. This snow will start to wind down around midday tomorrow, maybe even catching some peaks of sunshine. In terms of accumulations, north of the city, maybe some spotty dustings, but not really looking at significant accumulation in the north towns. Across the southern hills, we could still see about 3 to 5 inches on the ground by tomorrow afternoon. And I'm still thinking around an inch or two, not out of the question here around Buffalo. So for tonight, damaging winds will continue. Snow showers, blowing snow, bad visibility issues. That's going to continue as well. For tomorrow, it's really going to be a messy start. Early on, we're still going to be dealing with some wind gusts upwards of 50 to maybe 55 miles an hour first thing in the morning. Those winds gradually start to back off heading into the afternoon, but it's the afternoon when we can finally start to assess some of the damage. Really not going to be much improvement until then. Tuesday, we will see mostly cloudy and cold, but calmer. So Tuesday is going to be a big cleanup day, certainly. Wednesday, maybe some light snow, maybe an inch or two, nothing major. Mixed showers toward the end of the week, and then we got to watch that Saturday storm very closely. It looks kind of like a similar setup to today. There's a lot of time